Okay, so the first one was just an introduction to meiosis. The second talked about the stages and sources of genetic variation. This time we're going to be looking at the differences, highlighting the differences between meiosis and mitosis. So, mitosis versus meiosis. So if we look in mitosis, we start with one cell and we end up with two. What happens with the centrioles and the nuclear envelope and the spindle fibers, pretty much the same through all the phases of mitosis and meiosis. So what happens with the chromosomes that are different. So in mitosis, we go from having 4 chromosomes in this particular organism's cell to having 4 chromosomes. Okay, so we end up with identical daughter cells. There's no crossing over, there's no random assortment, nothing to give a genetic variation, so they are genetically identical to the parent cell, which makes sense because we're normally doing mitosis in order to grow and repair cells that are similar, or to grow and develop an individual. And in those cases, special genes are turned on at special times to make the cell look different or do a different job. But in the mitosis phase, where the cells are being replicated, they do need to start with one cell and end up with the same chromosomes in the end. All of our cells have the same chromosomes except for our sex cells, which only have half. Okay, if you were to look at metaphase for mitosis, all 4 of the chromosomes are lined up along the equator, and they will be split at the centromere. So the sister chromatids are pulled apart. Now let's look at meiosis. In meiosis, we start with 1 cell and we end up with 4. Okay, so 1 parent cell, 4 daughter cells. If you look at them, we start with 4 chromosomes. Okay, they're kind of all intertwined there during synapsis. And in the end, each of these cells only has 2 chromosomes. Okay, so we've reduced the number of chromosomes to half. And that actually happens by the end of the first division. So the other thing is that we start off with 4 certain chromosomes, but the chromosomes in each of these cells is genetically unique because there's been some crossing over and some random assortment. Okay, so you could end up with sex cells or eggs and sperm cells that have both the chromosomes or all the chromosomes from the mom's side or from the dad's side, or a mix. And remember, in us, there was 2 to the 23 different possible combinations or different ways that they could be separated in terms of mother-father copies. The other source of genetic variation is the crossing over that occurs. So if you look, this one has a big red one and a little blue one. They're all the one color. This one has a big blue one and a little red one, so they're not the same. Each of these other 2 in the middle, they have a little bit of red or a little bit of blue, and so they're all 4 are genetically different. Meiosis involves 2 divisions. Both of them involve only 1 replication of the DNA, but in mitosis there's 1 division, in meiosis there's 2. If you look at metaphase 1 in meiosis, in metaphase 1, it's the homologous pairs that are lining up at the plate, at the metaphase plate in the equator. Okay, so they line up in 2s, mother and father copies, whereas in mitosis, each of them lines up along the plate because each daughter cell is going to get 1 copy of every possible chromosome, the mother's and the father's copies. Okay, in this case, they line up because we're going to separate the mother and father copies. Alright, so I'm pretty sure this is a link for the animation, so I'm going to try and bring that up. Bear with me for a second. Hi, Darlin. Hopefully my little fella doesn't scream in the background. Oh, hang on. Hi, Darlin. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully that helped. So when they're saying diploid and haploid, that's a great way to say it too. We talked about it in terms of the number of chromosomes being the same or different. So in other words, this cell, ooh, the other difference or way of saying it, oh, I need a pen. Okay, this one, the parent cell is diploid and the daughter cells are diploid. Genetically identical, same number of chromosomes. Okay, in this one, the parent cell is diploid, but the daughter cells are all haploid. They have half the number of chromosomes. Okay, so this is just another diagram showing the differences. So we start with, there's one cell division. We end up with two daughter cells. We start with diploid and we end up with diploid. And that happens with the somatic cells. In meiosis, we have two cell divisions and we have four daughter cells. Each of them goes from 2N diploid to haploid. 1N. Okay, this is showing that there's two cells at the end of the first division, and each of those is going to divide further to give you four cells. And that's only in sexual reproduction. So certain cells in the reproductive organs of the organisms will undergo meiosis in order to produce these haploid cells. Okay, so to finish off, we're going to do a little compare and contrast. So I'm going to pretend like you guys are here, and we'll see how we can do. But I think I'll make, oops, one sec. I'm going to clone this one so I have it still. There we go. All right, so this is a good review activity. You can do them on your own. Think of how are they similar, okay? And similarities, much of what happens with the centrioles and the spindle fibers, all those are very similar. How are they similar? They're both required for an organism to be developed if they are sexually reproducing organisms like us. They both involve the phases. You can name them: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. They both involve single replication of DNA. Um, just think of different things that they have in common. There's lots of them that you could list. We're going to look at their differences in this particular activity. So, which one results in daughter cells that are genetically identical to the parent cell? You are right. Mitosis. Okay, so there's got to be one that's something like that. So let's look. Which one results in daughter cells that are all unique? So they're all genetically unique. That would be meiosis. All right, which one occurs only in sex organs to produce sperm and egg cells? Yep. Can you hear them in the background? Meiosis. Okay. Which one occurs in somatic cells for growth, maintenance, and repair? You are right. Okay, mitosis. Homologous pairs are never separated during cell division. Okay, that would be in mitosis. Okay, homologous pairs are separated. Would be meiosis. Involved in sexual reproduction, meiosis. Involved in asexual would be mitosis. Homologous chromosomes form tetrads. Well, they don't pair up in mitosis, so that only happens in meiosis. So the one that goes with that would be no tetrads. So mitosis, there are no tetrads formed. Which one results in 4 haploid cells? Yep, meiosis. And 2 diploid cells would be mitosis. Synapsis. The only one with synapsis is the one that is going to give us our genetic variation and pairs up those homologous pairs, so meiosis. And there's no synapsis in mitosis. Involves 1 division, mitosis, whereas meiosis involves 2. So a good way to study mitosis and meiosis is through compare and contrast. Watch the animations and videos, go through that assignment and see what kind of questions they come up with to compare this. If you have any questions, remember, text or email me anytime. I better go check on this little guy. I don't know if you can hear him or not. He's mommy, mommy.